Jake Morrison opened his eyes to a world of pain. His head throbbed like someone had hit him with a hammer. The air tasted strange, thick and metallic. Everything looked wrong. The walls around him glowed with a soft blue light that hurt his eyes. They were made of some kind of crystal that he had never seen before. He tried to move, but chains held his wrists and ankles. The metal was cold against his skin. Jake looked down at himself and saw that his uniform was gone. Instead, he wore rough gray cloth that scratched against his body. His throat was dry and his stomach felt empty. Where was he? The last thing he remembered was flying his scout ship near the edge of human space. He had been looking for enemy activity when bright lights filled his cockpit. Then everything went black. Now he was here. Wherever here was. The room was small, just big enough for him to lie down. There was no door that he could see. The walls seemed solid all around. Above him, the ceiling was the same glowing crystal. Below, the floor was smooth and cold. Jake pulled at the chains, but they would not break. The metal was strong and the links were thick. He tried to slip his hands through the cuffs, but they were too tight. His wrists were already raw from trying. Sound made him look up. Part of the wall was sliding away. Through the opening came something that made Jake's blood run cold. It walked on 6 legs like a giant insect. Its body was covered in hard black plates that clicked when it moved. 2 arms ended in claws that looked sharp enough to cut steel. Its head was triangular with compound eyes that reflected the blue light. When it opened its mouth, Jake saw rows of needle-sharp teeth. The creature looked at him for a long moment. Then it made a sound like grinding metal. Jake realized it was trying to speak. "Human," it said in broken English. "You wake. Good." Jake stared at the thing. His mind raced to understand what was happening. This was no human. This was something else. Something alien. "Where am I?" Jake asked. His voice came out as a croak. "You are prisoner," the creature said. "You are on ship of Kethvar Dominion. I am Commander Zixthak." The name meant nothing to Jake, but the word prisoner made his heart sink. He was captured. But by who? And why? "What do you want?" Jake asked. The creature made that grinding sound again. Jake thought it might be laughing. "Want to learn about humans?" Zixthak said. "Want to know how you think, how you fight, how you break. The word hung in the air like a threat. Zixthak turned and walked out through the opening. The wall slid closed behind him, leaving Jake alone again. Hours passed, or maybe days. Jake had no way to tell time in this place. The light never changed. No sun rose or set. His stomach growled with hunger, and his throat burned with thirst. Then the wall opened again. This time 2 smaller creatures came in. They looked like Zixthak, but with different markings on their shells. They carried a bowl of water and something that might have been food. Jake drank the water greedily. It tasted wrong, but it helped his throat. The food was gray and had no taste at all, but he ate it anyway. He needed strength if he was going to escape. The creatures watched him eat with those terrible compound eyes. When he was done, they took the bowl and left without saying anything. More time passed. Jake tried to keep track by counting his heartbeats, but he kept losing count. Sleep came and went in fitches. The chains made it hard to find a comfortable position. Then he heard something that made his heart jump. A human voice. "Hey," someone whispered. "Hey, can you hear me?" Jake looked around but saw nothing. The voice seemed to come through the walls. "I can hear you," Jake whispered back. "Where are you?" "Next cell over, I think," the voice said. "I'm Lisa Rodriguez, Marine Captain." "You?" "Jake Morrison, Navy, Lieutenant Commander." "How long have you been here?" Lisa asked. "I don't know. A few days, maybe." "You?" "Weeks. Maybe months. Hard to tell." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Months. How many of us are there?" he asked. "I've counted at least 20 voices," Lisa said. "But I think there are more. They keep us separated, only sometimes can we talk through the walls." "What do they want?" "Information. They ask questions about Earth. About our ships, our weapons, our defenses." Jake thought about this. If the aliens wanted military information, that meant they were planning something bad. Do you know what they're called? Jake asked. Kethvar, Lisa said. They hate us. Think we're weak because we care about each other. Jake remembered what Zixthak had said about breaking humans. Maybe that was their plan. Break them until they gave up information. Listen, Lisa said, her voice urgent. I've been watching them, learning their patterns. There might be a way out. Before Jake could ask what she meant, footsteps echoed outside. The conversation stopped. The wall opened and Zixthak came in again. This time he had another alien with him. This one was different. Its shell was a darker color and it had strange tools in its claws. Time for questions, Zixthak said. The other alien moved toward Jake. It touched one of its tools to his arm. Pain shot through his body like lightning. Jake screamed before he could stop himself. Where is Earth's main fleet? Zixthak asked. Jake gritted his teeth. I don't know. Another touch of the tool. More pain. This time Jake bit his tongue to keep from screaming. Wrong answer, Zixthak said. How many ships protect your homeworld? Go to hell, Jake gasped. The pain came again. Longer this time. Jake's vision went white. When it cleared, both aliens were staring at him. Interesting, the one with the tool said in a voice like scraping metal. Most species break by now. Humans are different. They will break, Zixthak said. They all break eventually. The aliens left. Jake lay on the cold floor, his body still shaking from the pain. But inside he felt something else. Anger. Cold, hard anger. These creatures thought they could break him. They thought humans were weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Through the wall he heard Lisa's voice again. You okay? Yeah, Jake whispered. Tell me about that way out. Days blended into weeks. Jake lost count of how many times they came for him. Each session was worse than the last. The aliens had many tools for causing pain, and they used them all. But Jake did not break. Neither did the others. Through whispered conversations in the dark, he learned about his fellow prisoners. There was Danny Hayes, an engineer who had been working on ship designs. Amy Clark, a communications officer who knew about Earth's defense networks. And Lisa Rodriguez, the Marine who had become their unofficial leader. The aliens grew frustrated. Jake could see it in their compound eyes when they looked at him. They had expected humans to be weak, to give up quickly. Instead, the prisoners held together. Your species confuses us, Zixthak said during one of their sessions. Why do you not break? We have broken many species. All surrender eventually. Jake spat blood on the floor. Because you don't understand us. Explain. We get stronger when we're hurt. Every time you torture us, every time you hurt one of us, the rest of us get angrier. And anger makes us dangerous. Zixthak made that grinding sound that might have been laughter. Anger without power is nothing. You are chained. You are helpless. That night Jake heard new sounds through the walls. Footsteps, but different ones, heavier, more of them. Something's happening, Lisa whispered. I think they're bringing in more prisoners. She was right. Over the next few days, Jake heard new voices, more humans, men and women from different ships, different units. The aliens were collecting them like specimens, but they also brought someone else, someone who made Jake's blood run cold when he heard the screams. New arrival, one of the guards said in their clicking language. Jake had learned some of their words by listening. Special prisoner, doctor. The screaming went on for hours. When it finally stopped, Jake called out softly, Hey, new guy, you okay? No answer came. The next day, Zixthak visited Jake's cell with a companion Jake had not seen before. This one was smaller but carried itself differently. Its shell was covered in strange symbols. This is Dr. Velnash, Zixthak said, specialist in neural modification. Jake felt his stomach drop. Neural modification meant brain surgery. They were going to mess with their minds. Your resistance has impressed the Dominion, Zixthak continued. We have decided to try new methods. Dr. Velnash will help us understand human consciousness, and then modify it. You're going to lobotomize us, Jake said. Crude term, Dr. Velnash said in a voice like broken glass. We prefer neural restructuring, make you more cooperative, better slaves. They left Jake to think about that. The idea of losing his mind, becoming a shell of himself, was worse than any physical torture. That night brought more screams. They were taking prisoners one by one for the procedure. Jake listened as voices he had come to know went silent forever. Then he heard something that broke his heart. Amy Clark, the communications officer who had whispered jokes to keep their spirits up, was taken. Her screams lasted for what felt like hours. When they brought her back, she did not respond to anyone's calls. Amy, Lisa whispered through the wall. Amy, can you hear us? No response. The aliens had taken her mind. Jake felt something snap inside him. Not break, but transform. The cold anger he had been nursing burst into something else, something calculating and deadly. The next morning, when they brought his food, Jake watched the guards more carefully than ever before. He noticed things, the way they moved, the pattern of their patrols, the sounds their claws made on different surfaces. He also noticed something else, the guards' tools. One of them carried a device that looked like it might be used for opening locks. It was attached to the guard's belt by a simple clip. When the guard bent down to place the food bowl, Jake moved. His chains allowed just enough reach. His fingers closed around the device and pulled it free. The guard did not notice. Jake hid the tool under his body and waited. Hours passed. The ship around them hummed with alien machinery. Jake could hear the guards talking to each other in their clicking language. They were discussing the next prisoner to be taken for neural modification. It was going to be Danny Hayes, the engineer. Jake could not let that happen. Danny was too valuable. He understood systems and machines. If they were going to escape, they would need him. Using the stolen tool, Jake began working on his chains. The device seemed to respond to touch, changing shape as he manipulated it. After several attempts, he found the right configuration. The lock on his wrist cuff clicked open. Freedom felt strange after so long in chains. Jake rubbed his wrists and slowly sat up. He was weak from captivity but alive, and angry. He moved to the wall where the door had been. The tool worked on this lock too, but it took longer. Finally, the crystal wall slid aside. The corridor beyond was dimly lit. Jake could see other cell doors along the walls. At the far end, 2 guards stood at a junction. They were not looking his way. Jake moved like a shadow. His bare feet made no sound on the smooth floor. He reached the first guard before it noticed him. The alien was big, but Jake had surprise on his side. He grabbed the guard's head and twisted sharply. The neck broke with a wet crack. The second guard turned at the sound. Its compound eyes widened as it saw Jake. It opened its mouth to scream, but Jake was already moving. He drove his fist into the alien's throat, crushing its windpipe. It fell silently. Jake took their weapons, strange energy devices that felt warm in his hands. He also took their communication equipment and lock-opening tools. Now he had to free the others. But he had to be smart about it. Too many loose prisoners at once would alert the whole ship. He started with Lisa. She was in the cell next to his. When the door opened and she saw him standing there, free, her eyes went wide. How? Did you get out? Stole a tool, Jake whispered. We need to move fast. They're coming for Danny next. Lisa nodded. She understood. They freed Danny from his cell, then Amy. But Amy just stared at them with empty eyes. The neural modification had taken her mind but left her body alive. We can't leave her, Lisa said. We can't take her either, Jake replied. She'll just slow us down. Then we carry her. Jake looked at Lisa's determined face and nodded. They would not leave anyone behind. That was what made them human. They moved through the corridors like ghosts. Jake had studied the guard patrols and knew their timing, but they could not stay hidden forever. Soon someone would find the dead guards. We need a plan, Danny whispered, as they hid in a maintenance alcove. Where are we going? First, we find out how many of us there are. Jake said. Then we find a way off this ship. What if we can't escape? Lisa asked. Jake checked the alien weapon in his hands. It hummed with deadly energy. Then we make them regret taking us, he said. Behind them, alarms began to wail. The guards had been found. The hunt was beginning. The alarms screamed through the ship like dying animals. Red lights flashed in the corridors, casting strange shadows on the crystal walls. Jake pressed himself against the wall and listened to the sound of running feet. Heavy claws clicked on metal as guards rushed through the passages. Lockdown protocol initiated, an alien voice announced over the ship's communication system. All prisoners remain in cells. Guards report to stations. Jake almost smiled. The aliens thought this was a simple escape attempt. They expected the humans to run and hide. They had no idea what was really happening. This way, Jake whispered to the others. They moved deeper into the ship, away from the prison section. Jake had memorized the route during his interrogation sessions. The aliens always took the same path when they brought him to their questioning rooms. Now that knowledge would serve him. Danny Hayes struggled with Amy Clark's weight. The neural modification had left her able to walk, but unable to think clearly. She moved when directed but showed no awareness of their danger. "Leave me behind," Amy suddenly whispered. Her voice was flat and empty. "I am broken. Save yourselves." "No," Lisa said firmly. "We stick together." They reached a maintenance shaft that Danny had noticed during his own interrogation. The engineer worked quickly with the stolen tools, opening the access panel. "It leads to the ship's main systems," Danny explained. "If we can reach the core sections, we can do real damage." They crawled through the narrow shaft in single file. The metal was cold against their skin, and the space was barely wide enough for their shoulders. Behind them, the sounds of searching. Guards grew fainter. The shaft opened into a large room filled with humming machinery. Lights blinked on control panels and energy flowed through transparent tubes. This was clearly important, though none of them could read the alien writing on the displays. "This looks like life support," Danny said, studying the equipment. "If we shut this down, we kill everyone on the ship," Jake finished, "including ourselves." "Not kill," Danny corrected. "But we could make them very uncomfortable, force them to focus on repairs instead of hunting us." Jake nodded. It was a good plan. He watched as Danny worked on the alien systems, using his engineering knowledge to figure out their function. Within minutes, the engineer had identified several critical components. "Ready?" Danny asked. "Do it." Danny pulled a handful of components from the machinery. Immediately, the lights dimmed and a new alarm joined the chaos. The ship's air grew thicker and harder to breathe. "That should get their attention," Lisa said. They moved on, using the maintenance shafts to travel unseen through the ship. Jake had a larger plan forming in his mind. The aliens expected them to run. Instead, he was going to hunt. Their first target was a guard patrol, 3 aliens moving through a side corridor, looking for escaped prisoners. They never saw Jake coming. He dropped from a ceiling vent behind them. The alien weapon in his hands fired with a sound like tearing silk. The energy beam cut through the first guard's shell like paper. The second guard spun around, raising its own weapon, but Lisa was already there. She drove a sharpened piece of metal into the creature's compound eye. The third guard managed to trigger an alarm before Danny tackled it. They fought on the floor, the alien's claws leaving deep cuts on Danny's arms. Then, Amy Clark, moving with the mechanical precision of her damaged mind, picked up a heavy tool and smashed the guard's head. "Thanks," Danny gasped, clutching his bleeding arms. Amy just stared at him with empty eyes. They took the guards' weapons and equipment, then hid the bodies. Jake studied the alien communication device, trying to understand its function. "I can hear their chatter," he told the others. "They're confused. They keep reporting impossible attacks, guards found dead in secure areas, systems failing for no reason." "Good," Lisa said. "Fear makes people stupid, even aliens apparently." Their next target was a group of technicians working to repair the life support system. Jake and his team struck fast and silent. The technicians died without knowing what hit them. Danny sabotaged their repair work, making the problems worse instead of better. As they moved through the ship, Jake began to understand its layout. The prison section was at the bottom. Above that were crew quarters and work areas. Higher up were command sections and important systems. At the very top would be the bridge and the ship's most critical equipment. "We need to free more prisoners," Jake said as they rested in a storage room. 4 people can't take a whole ship." 5, Amy said suddenly. Her voice was still flat, but there was something else there now. Something dangerous. "I can fight. Even broken, I can fight." Jake looked at her carefully. The neural modification had taken her personality but left her memories and skills. She was still a trained military officer, just one without emotions or fear. "All right," Jake said. 5 of us. But we still need more." They made their way back toward the prison section, moving carefully through areas they had already cleared. The aliens were starting to adapt, posting guards in pairs and checking bodies more carefully. But they were still thinking defensively. They were trying to contain the problem instead of solving it. The prison section was heavily guarded now. Jake counted at least a dozen aliens around the cell area. Too many for a direct attack. "We need a distraction," Lisa whispered. Jake smiled, grimly. He had an idea. They backtracked to a communication station they had passed earlier. Danny worked on the alien equipment while Jake watched for guards. It took several minutes, but finally the engineer nodded. "I'm in," Danny said. "I can access their internal communications. Can you broadcast to the whole ship?" "I think so." "Why?" Jake took the communication device. "Because I want to talk to them." He activated the broadcast system. Throughout the ship, every speaker crackled to life. "Attention, Kethavar crew," Jake said in clear, calm English. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. You have made a mistake." The ship suddenly went very quiet. Jake could imagine the aliens stopping what they were doing to listen. "You thought humans were weak," Jake continued. "You thought we would break under torture. You thought we would beg for mercy. You were wrong." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We are not your prisoners anymore. We are your worst nightmare. We are humans who have nothing left to lose. And we are coming for you." Jake shut off the broadcast. In the silence that followed, he could hear the aliens clicking and chattering to each other in their own language. Fear made people do stupid things, and aliens were apparently no exception. "That should keep them busy," Lisa said. They moved back toward the prison section. As Jake had hoped, some of the guards had been pulled away to search other parts of the ship. Only 6 aliens remained at the prison entrance. The attack was swift and brutal. Jake and his team had become something the aliens had never faced before. They were no longer prisoners trying to escape. They were predators hunting prey. When the last guard fell, Jake began opening cell doors. Humans stumbled out, blinking in the light. Some were weak from torture, others were angry and ready to fight. All of them looked at Jake with something like hope. "How many ships do they have?" Jake asked a pilot named Kevin who had been captured 3 weeks earlier. "I saw at least 20 when they brought me in," Kevin replied. "Big ones. This is a full invasion fleet." Jake felt cold dread in his stomach. 20 ships full of these aliens heading for Earth. His home world would not survive such an attack unless someone stopped them first. "Listen to me, all of you," Jake said to the freed prisoners. "We're not just escaping anymore. We're going to stop this fleet. We're going to show these aliens what happens when you threaten humanity." He looked at their faces. Soldiers, engineers, pilots, communications officers, dozens of trained military personnel who had been pushed beyond their breaking point. "Are you with me?" The answer came as a roar of angry voices. Yes, they were with him. The hunt was about to become a war. The ship became a battlefield. Jake divided his people into 3 groups. Lisa led one team to secure the armory and gather weapons. Danny took another group to the engineering sections to learn about the ship's systems. Jake kept the 3rd group with him to hunt down key targets. They moved like shadows through the corridors. The aliens had never faced an enemy that fought from within their own ship. Their tactics were designed for space battles and planetary invasions, not guerrilla warfare in cramped passages. Jake's team struck at communication centers, cutting off different sections of the ship from each other. They hit life support stations, making the air thin and hard to breathe. They sabotaged power systems, plunging whole areas into darkness. With each attack, the aliens grew more desperate and more afraid. "Sir," one of Jake's team members whispered. It was a young communications officer named Paul. "I'm picking up transmissions from the other ships in the fleet. They're asking for updates." Jake smiled grimly. "What's our ship telling them?" "Nothing. Sir, we cut their long-range communications an hour ago." That was good. The other ships would not know what was happening here until it was too late. Danny's voice crackled over their stolen communication devices. "Jake, you need to see this. I'm in the main computer core." Jake fought his way through the ship to reach Danny's position. The engineer was standing in front of a massive display covered with alien symbols and star charts. "I cracked their navigation system," Danny said. "Look at this." The display showed a map of local space. Jake could see Earth, marked with a symbol that clearly meant target. Lines connected Earth to dozens of other star systems, all marked with the same symbol. "They're not just invading Earth," Danny said quietly. "This is the start of a campaign to conquer dozens of human colonies. They're planning to enslave our entire species." Jake stared at the display. Millions of humans would die or become slaves if this fleet succeeded, unless someone stopped them here and now. "Can you access their fleet communications?" Jake asked. "Maybe. Why?" "Because I have an idea." While Danny worked on the communications, Jake contacted Lisa. Her team had successfully captured the armory and armed every freed prisoner. They had also found something else. "Jake, you need to see this," Lisa said when they met at the armory. She led him to a sealed chamber filled with strange equipment. "What is it?" Jake asked. "I think it's some kind of weapon. Look at these readings." The equipment hummed with dangerous energy. Warning symbols covered every surface, and the air around it felt charged with electricity. "Danny needs to see this," Jake said. They brought the engineer to examine the weapon. His face went pale as he studied the alien technology. "This is a planet killer," Danny said slowly. "It fires a beam that can crack a world's crust. They were planning to use this on Earth if the invasion failed." Jake felt rage building in his chest. These creatures had not just wanted to conquer humanity. They had been prepared to destroy his entire world. "Can we turn it against their own ships?" he asked. Danny studied the weapon's controls. "Maybe, but the targeting system is complex, and we'd have to get close to use it effectively." That gave Jake another idea. A dangerous one. What if we didn't target their ships? What if we used this ship as a weapon? Danny's eyes widened as he understood. "Ram them. Use this ship's mass and the planet killer to destroy as many enemy ships as possible." "Exactly. But first we need to send a warning to Earth." They fought their way to the ship's communication center. The aliens had realized what was happening, and were mounting organized resistance. Jake's people were outnumbered, but they had advantages the aliens could not match. Humans were adaptable. They could use any weapon, fight in any environment, and think on their feet. The aliens were used to rigid tactics and clear command structures. Chaos confused them. Jake reached the communication center just as a squad of alien soldiers arrived, from the opposite direction. The battle was fierce and close. Energy weapons lit up the corridor like lightning. 2 of Jake's people fell, but the aliens died too. "Danny, get that message sent," Jake ordered as he fought. The engineer worked frantically at the alien controls. "I'm through their security, broadcasting now." Jake's voice went out across space toward Earth. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison to Earth Defense Command. Kethavar invasion fleet of 20 ships approaching your position. Fleet carries planet-killing weapons. We are attempting to reduce their numbers. Prepare all defenses. Morrison out." The message would take time to reach Earth, but it would get there. His homeworld would have warning. Now for the hard part. "All teams, fall back to the main hangar," Jake ordered. "We're abandoning ship." His people fought running battles through the corridors as they retreated. The aliens pressed their attack, thinking the humans were fleeing in defeat. They were wrong. In the hangar, Jake's teams had prepared several small ships for launch. Escape pods and shuttles, anything that could carry people away from this ship. Everyone who wants to leave, get on those ships now, Jake announced. But I'm staying. Someone needs to aim this weapon. Lisa stepped forward. I'm staying too. So, am I? Danny said. And me, Amy added in her flat, emotionless voice. One by one, more volunteers stepped forward. They were soldiers who understood sacrifice. They knew that their deaths here might save millions of lives back home. In the end, 15 people chose to stay. The rest launched in the escape ships, heading for empty space where they might be picked up by rescue vessels. Jake and his volunteers began their final preparations. Danny rigged the planet killer weapon to fire continuously once activated. Lisa set charges throughout the ship's structure to weaken it at key points. Amy worked on the navigation system, plotting a course toward the densest part of the enemy fleet. How long do we have? Jake asked. The other ships are moving to intercept, Amy reported. 30 minutes before they're in range to stop us. That was enough time. Jake activated the ship's engines and set course for the enemy fleet. The aliens on board his ship realized what was happening and launched desperate attacks to stop him. But it was too late. The humans controlled all the key systems. Through the viewports, Jake could see the other alien ships growing larger. They were firing at him now, trying to destroy his ship before it could reach them. Energy beams and projectiles lit up space around them. Weapon charged and ready, Danny reported. Navigation locked, Amy said. Structural charges armed, Lisa added. Jake looked at his friends, these brave people who had chosen to stay and fight to the end. It's been an honor, he said. They replied with grim smiles and determined nods. Jake activated the planet killer weapon. Energy built up in the alien device, preparing to unleash destruction on a scale beyond imagination. Outside, the enemy ships grew larger and larger. 10 seconds to impact. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. The universe exploded in light and fire. The planet killer weapon fired at point-blank range into the nearest enemy ship. The beam carved through armor and hull like a knife through paper. The alien vessel came apart in a chain of explosions. Jake's ship, weakened by Lisa's charges, broke apart from the weapon's recoil. But the pieces continued forward, carried by momentum toward more enemy ships. Each fragment became a projectile moving at incredible speed. The destruction spread through the enemy fleet like wildfire. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before became burning wrecks. The carefully organized formation dissolved into chaos. When the explosions finally ended, only 7 alien ships remained out of the original 20. The invasion fleet had been crippled. The message Jake had sent would reach Earth in time. His home world would be ready for the weakened enemy force that remained. Jake Morrison and his volunteers were gone, but their sacrifice had saved millions of lives. In the wreckage floating through space, emergency beacons began broadcasting. The escape pods carrying the other freed prisoners were sending distress signals. Soon, Earth ships would find them and learn the full story of what had happened. The galaxy would know that humanity could not be broken, that even in chains, even facing impossible odds, humans would find a way to fight back. The Kethvar had learned this lesson too late, but others would learn it from the wreckage of their fleet. The rescue ships found the survivors 3 days later. Human vessels alerted by Jake's warning message had been searching the area where long-range sensors detected the massive explosions. They found escape pods drifting in space, carrying 32 freed prisoners who had lived to tell the tale. Captain Susan White of the Earth defense ship Aurora was the first to speak with the survivors. She listened in stunned silence as Lisa Rodriguez, now the ranking survivor, told the story of what had happened aboard the Kethvar prison ship. "One man did all this?" Captain White asked when Lisa finished her report. "Not just Jake," Lisa corrected. "All of us, but yes, he started it. He showed us that we didn't have to stay victims." The rescue ships also found wreckage, pieces of alien technology scattered across millions of kilometers of space, the remains of 13 Kethvar vessels, including what had been the fleet's command ship. Earth scientists studied every fragment they could recover. The alien technology was advanced but not impossible to understand. More importantly, they learned about Kethavar weaknesses, their rigid thinking, their inability to adapt to unexpected tactics. When the surviving 7 ships of the invasion fleet finally reached Earth, they found a prepared enemy waiting for them. Human ships equipped with weapons designed specifically to exploit Kethavar vulnerabilities. The battle was fierce but short. Not one alien ship survived to return home. Commander Zixthak died in that battle, still unable to understand how his weak prisoners had become his worst nightmare. But the story did not end there. Word of the human victory spread across the galaxy through hidden communication networks that connected dozens of alien species. The message was always the same. Humanity had faced a superior enemy and won through sheer determination and courage. On the Kethavar homeworld, panic spread through the ruling council. Their invasion fleet, carefully planned and equipped with their most advanced weapons, had been destroyed. Worse, they had lost the element of surprise. Humanity now knew they existed and was preparing for war. Other alien species took note as, well, the Rigelian Trade Federation, which had been considering whether to offer humanity membership, fast-tracked their application. The Centaurian Republic sent ambassadors to Earth, eager to form alliances with this surprisingly resilient species. Even the Andromedans, ancient and powerful beings who rarely noticed younger species, sent observers to study humanity. They had seen many races rise and fall over millions of years, but few had impressed them as much as these determined humans. Back on Earth, construction began on new types of warships. The alien technology recovered from the battle provided insights into faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and defensive systems. Within 5 years, Earth's fleet had grown from a handful of short-range vessels to a force that could project power across dozens of star systems. But perhaps the most important change was in how humans saw themselves. Before the Kethavar invasion, Earth's people had thought they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they were part of a vast galactic community. They also knew they could hold their own against any threat. Jake Morrison became a legend. Stories of his escape and the destruction of the invasion fleet were told in schools, military academies, and around dinner tables. Children played games where they pretended to be prisoners breaking free from alien captivity. His name became synonymous with courage and determination. The survivors from the prison ship were given every honor Earth could bestow. Lisa Rodriguez was promoted to colonel and given command of Earth's new Special Operations Division. Danny Hayes became the chief engineer of the Stellar Defense Project, designing ships and weapons for humanity's growing fleet. Even Amy Clark, her mind damaged by alien experiments, found purpose. Her condition made her fearless in ways that could be useful. She became the leader of humanity's most dangerous missions, taking on tasks that would terrify anyone with normal emotions. But the greatest monument to Jake's sacrifice was built, not on Earth but in the asteroid field where the final battle had taken place. Using recovered alien technology, human engineers constructed a space station at the exact coordinates where Jake's ship had made its heroic ramming attack. The station was called Morrison Base. It served as both a memorial and a warning. Enduring alien species passing through the area would see it and remember what happened when humanity was pushed too far. The base's central monument was simple, but powerful. A hologram of Jake Morrison in his torn prison clothes, breaking free from alien chains. Around the base of the monument were the names of everyone who had died in the escape, including the 15 volunteers who had chosen to stay for the final attack. Below the names, carved in stone that would last forever, were Jake's final words to the galaxy. Humanity does not break. We adapt, we overcome, and we remember. The memorial became a pilgrimage site for humans throughout the growing colonial empire. Young people would come to see where their freedom had been bought with blood and sacrifice. Military cadets would stand before the monument and swear oaths to protect humanity from any threat. But the memorial attracted other visitors as well. Alien diplomats and merchants would stop at Morrison Base to pay their respects. They understood the message. Humanity was not a species to be trifled with. The Kethavar Dominion never recovered from the loss of their invasion fleet. Within a generation, their empire had collapsed. torn apart by rebellions from species they had enslaved. Many of their former slaves made pilgrimages to Morrison Base, grateful to the humans who had shown them that resistance was possible. As the years passed, the story took on an almost mythical quality. Bards on distant worlds sang songs about the human prisoners who became warriors. Alien parents told their children bedtime stories about Jake Morrison, the man who refused to break. But for those who had lived through it, the memory remained, sharp and clear. They remembered the cold of the alien ship, the pain of torture, the fear of death. They also remembered the moment when they stopped being victims and became fighters. Lisa Rodriguez, now an old woman covered with scars from a lifetime of battles, would sometimes stand before Jake's hologram and whisper, "We kept the promise, sir. We remembered." And across the galaxy, whenever humans faced impossible odds or seemed beaten beyond hope, someone would remember the story of Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison. They would remember that chains can be broken, that prisoners can become warriors, and that humanity's greatest strength is its refusal to stay defeated. The screams that had started when the chains broke still echoed through the galaxy, but now they were screams of victory, not pain. They were the sound of humanity claiming its place among the stars. Jake Morrison had been just a prisoner, until the chains broke and the screams started, and then he had become something much more. He had become hope,